and brothers had all conspired to leave him behind. Perhaps that was what the ancestors had told his father to do when he had prayed to the hen the day before. This was a lot for a 6-year-old boy to absorb. Charles stood by the door of his grandmother's hut, trying to sort through the information.
"What will happen to me?"
he asked. His grandmother wiped a tear from her wrinkled face.
"You will live with me, but—"
Her voice trailed off. Charles knew very well what the "but" meant. They lived in Kathithiyama, the village in south-central Kenya where his mother and her brothers had been raised. According to local custom, the brothers stayed with the parents and inherited the land, while the sisters were married off and moved away to their husbands' lands. A daughter had no right to inherit anything from her parents, but Daudi Mully had broken with tradition and come to stay with his wife's family, bringing along Charles and their other 3 children. Rhoda Mully's 5 brothers, Charles's uncles, resented the fact that their sister had returned home and expected them to help support her husband, and the children. Charles had once overheard Uncle Nzioka arguing with his grandmother about giving the Mully family food from her tiny garden. Charles knew that his uncles would be very angry that he had been left behind, fearing that he would grow up there and be entitled to some of their inheritance. Charles gathered a sack to sleep on from the old family hut and carried it to his grandmother's place, his new home. His grandmother's hut was even smaller than the one the Mully family had been living in, but it felt like a safe haven to Charles. In Charles's previous experience, his father would beat his mother more nights than not, and then unleash his fury on Charles and his brothers. It felt good to him to sleep in the corner of the hut, knowing he would not be subjected to another nightmarish beating. Soon, however, a new nightmare presented itself. The reality in his new home of feeding 2 mouths instead of 1 became urgent. There was no food left in his grandmother's hut, and her tiny garden didn't produce enough vegetables to feed them both. Sometimes her sons brought food, staying to watch her eat it and insisting she not share any of it with Charles.
"Let him beg,"
they said.
"His parents left him behind. He is worthless. We don't want him either."
Charles recoiled at the idea of begging. It was bad enough that the other children in the village taunted him with "Burr, burr," unwanted orphan. What would they say when he started begging for food from their families? After not eating for 3.5 days, Charles broke down and headed to a neighbor to ask for food. Despite the hunger gnawing at his stomach, he hated what he was being forced to do. Luckily, a kind woman was in the first hut, and she gave him boiled manioc to eat. She even knelt beside Charles to talk to him, but he ran away before she could ask him any questions. Charles made the manioc last for 2 days and then had to beg again. Sometimes he met with kindness, but as the months went by, many people became weary of feeding the 6-year-old who had been left behind.
"What's wrong with you? Why didn't your family take you with them? Why did they take the others and leave you behind?"
they would ask him. Charles didn't know how to answer the questions. He had heard a rumor that his parents and siblings were in Kenya's capital, Nairobi, 35 miles to the west. Sometimes at night, as he lay on his sack in the corner of his grandmother's hut, he tried to imagine what might be happening in the capital. What were his brothers doing? Were they rich enough to go to school? Had his father found a job and stopped drinking and beating his mother? A year passed, and still Charles's parents did not return. He had become used to his new life, even though each day was a struggle. Another year passed. Charles was now 8 years old and felt like an old man. Every day he was burdened with the need to find enough food to fend off starvation. He was sure that his life would not only never get any better, but would also get